collected all the offerings in the church, but instead of using it to solve social issues or to do God's work, he ended up gambling. Mr. Speaker, I've skimmed through this report. I've seen the areas which this House had suggested that be deleted in the bill. There's a reason as to why this bill ended up in mediation, and most of them have been retained. Mr. Speaker, this is not the time for us to encourage gambling in this country. I share the same sentiments with my colleagues who have spoken before me in terms of making it punitive for anyone to come and gamble this time. We must, first of all, solve our social issues. Mr. Speaker, gambling companies which make billions of shillings, in fact billions of dollars, target vulnerable, poor societies, people who make 500 shillings a day doing manual jobs, to be told to gamble. Our radio stations, our TV stations are the easiest way to communicate. But instead of our own radio station taking more time to educate the public and carrying out public participation on the dangers of gambling, they are spending more time collecting revenue because they can share the profits. Mr. Speaker, I completely oppose gambling. I oppose this bill. And if my colleagues, if I was to convince you from both sides of the aisle, I would request that we rethink gambling in this country. Mr. Speaker, in America, and I lived in America for so many years, and I'm also a resident, when you go to certain states, gambling is restricted to a particular area where only the rich would be able to drive. In Colorado, Mr. Speaker, you'll find that gambling would go into the Native American reservation, where there's a city which is set aside just for gambling. So it's the rich who will go there. People who have made money until they have, I cannot use that word, but they have money which they can only just use it as they wish. Disposable, not even disposable. There's a word I wanted to use which is not parliamentary, but I cannot use. It's money that you don't really care about. You don't give a hoot on where that money comes from. Mr. Speaker, the biggest challenge we have in this country right now, which is attributed to gambling, is mental illness. In this House, we passed a law on mental illness and how to deal with it. The laws that we are discussing in this House, and I have no problem with passing legislation, but we have to pass this legislation. We have to discuss this legislation cognizant of what is affecting, what is ailing our society. Right now, there are so many poor people, and the only thing they know how to do is to gamble for them to make money. There are people who will make 1,000 shillings maybe in a week because there are no jobs available. But because they have been lured to a scheme where they can get rich fast, they gamble all that money, and then they end up doing what? Sitting down looking at their kids in a table where they cannot eat. Gambling increases crime in a country, Mr. Speaker. Today, Mr. Speaker, we have our children in this parliament. They are looking at us. The same children who come here to listen to us are the same children who we do not understand now because they are from a different generation than the one we come from. They're the Gen Zs. We don't understand the language they speak. But instead of us taking the lead and guiding them, we are here discussing about amending laws and saying how good these laws are to gamble. We are not teaching them. I like what, although I don't associate myself with a lot of sentiments of my brother from Tana River, but I like one thing that he said, that to the children, know that we will not always tell you what we go through to be able to wear good suits. Some of us, you might look at us and you think, oh, this person is about 60 years old, and he's merely 20 years old. But it's because they have sleepless nights. They don't sleep. You know, they are always up at night, working. They have 10 jobs. Then you just see them here looking smart, sharp. You know, you don't even know what they're suffering from. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to beseech my colleagues here that it is not time for us to be passing this legislation to be able to support people who are already filthy rich, who are already collecting so much money. It is time for us now to think seriously about how do we end all these problems? How do we reduce crimes? How do we ensure that we have created jobs for our youth so that they don't end up in the streets? You know, these regulations that we're talking about, now in a devolved system of governance, where the Constitution allows county governments to be able to develop laws to collect certain taxes. This, unless there is uniformity across board, you will find some other counties who are culturally sane will say, we will hike and put so much money to be able to save their citizens. But others, because of interest, business interests, they'll make it even very cheap. Pay 5,000 shillings and you can have a gambling license. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I oppose this. I think the exposure to the youth at this particular time, when we are facing a lot of social issues, joblessness, should not be to gambling, but should be to working hard to making money. You know, our country is so good. Our country, you can only compare our country with other developed nations. But sometimes, even if we are passing through, the word is leapfrogging. Even if we leapfrog, sometimes certain things, we cannot just say you are born today and tomorrow you can be able to walk. But because of technology now, there are certain things that we don't need to go through the entire industrial revolution process for us to be able to manage how to do it. But in this country now, we have to remember that that process of industrialization is necessary because we have 47 counties which are completely different. So, Mr. Speaker, I oppose it. I think when you look at across the world, there are countries which are not stable. But those countries are the same countries, I think one of my colleagues who was speaking, are the ones who set up gambling websites. They lure people to gamble there, and then before you realize, in fact, the first one, you are told, hey, take some little money. And you make some little money. You get addicted. You get addicted. Before you realize, you cannot even think straight. I think the only gambling that I can be able to say, it's one that can be allowed in this country is in the stock market. Because at least in the stock market you are seeing there's a company here, Safaricom as an example. Yesterday I was reading somewhere that Airtel has now surpassed Safaricom in terms of their customer base. You know, when you are told invest in those companies, gamble in those companies, there is something where you know you'll be watching your stocks rising on a daily basis or going down, which is life. But where you are putting in and you don't know whether you're going to get money to buy a loaf of bread or even a cup of tea. No. I say no to that. So, Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I completely oppose this report, and I oppose anything to do with gambling in this country at this particular time. I think in the next 10 years, once we've been able to fix our current problems of understanding each generation,